You want a couple minutes before while we let you
I
make the
can pause it.
transition?
Judy, if somebody's been kicked out, can you bring them back in? Because there were a group of them, there were like 5 or 6 that probably want to come back in. Can you bring them back in?
I don't get any notifications. It tells them that I've declined them. And I was looking for that during our break to see if there was any change at all to my ability to do that. And I can't find it. It'll be, you know, the next meeting we have, I'll have it corrected as far as for that meeting. But in this one, I don't know how to do that during the meeting. So
Can they call in? So like Alan,
Mhm.
could they call in?
I think they can. I think that'll give them a different access.
Julie, could you send in I can't get on my computer now. Could you send Alan an email saying he can call in? Because Alan Delwich was locked out. Do you remember who else, Judy?
Kurt Schroeder.
Kurt Schroeder.
Kurt Schroeder? I don't have. Roy, could you send Kurt an email?
And also Ted Johnson from the COG.
There's actually a way to do it. I'm just reading it on the support for Zoom. It might be, I could send Judy the link to show her how to readmit people who have been kicked out.
That'd be great.
I'll email it to you right now and you can take a look and maybe we could do it because I really don't like the idea of people not being able to join the
I
public.
know. I totally agree.
Let me just send you that email link and maybe we can have a couple minutes so we could, so if it works, that would be great.
Yeah, that's the key, is if it works.
Amy Mott, or whatever her name is, was another one who tried to get in.
Okay, I've just sent you the instructions on how to do that, Judy, and hopefully it'll work.
I can't hear you.
Oh, there you go.
Still can't hear you. Still can't hear you.
Who are you waiting to hear from?
We can't hear Julie.
We can't hear Julie at all. Does she know that?
She says yes.
Like, let's see.
Okay, I've got Julie calling me. Hang on a moment.
Clerk, yeah. Mhm. 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 Mhm.
Hey, honey, do you have, let's see.
Okay, now we're just missing Denise and Chief Churchill.
Sorry.
Well, that's okay. No, that's actually, we're moving in the right direction here.
There we go.
Well, I propose we get started here. I think we have pretty much everybody. I would assume that Chief Churchill will join us as soon as he can. Oh, there he is. Good. Okay,
Mayor,
great.
since you're going back into normal session, I didn't think you wanted me involved in this on screen, so that's why I was staying off.
Well, I'm sorry. As you wish. Yeah, if you would, yeah, if you want to go off screen, that's your call. Thank you. Okay, so the next item is to receive or act on council correspondence. Pretty standard fare. Anybody want to go first? Julie?
I mention this only because it's related to the gentleman who spoke near the beginning of the meeting about the sewage in his basement. I have a neighbor who also had sewage in their basement, was it yesterday? And they were told it was caused by, they were told by the water department that it was caused by some main in the road. And it was my understanding that the city does not take responsibility even when their own activities cause sewage to end up in our basements. And if we don't have that special rider on our homeowner's insurance, then we got to pay ourselves. Am I correct that there's no city liability for that, Jeff?
So the basic rule is that as long as the city is exercising reasonable care with respect to its sewer lines, which is generally shown to be inspections every 3 years and making repairs when there's issues that are known about, it's a negligence standard. It's not like strict liability. You don't automatically have to pay for it.
Okay. So actually Denise might want to make note of that so she knows what to tell that guy when she calls him back.
Yeah,
Are you listening, Denise?
I am. I'm sorry.
Oh, I just want you to know the lady who called me about the sewage in her house in her basement yesterday, or Sunday, I guess it was, maybe. Jeff's answer is the same answer you'll have to give that guy who spoke initially on the problems with his sewage in his basement. In other words, the city doesn't pay for that.
Julie, can you send Roy and I her name and number so that we can also follow up with her? Is that okay?
Oh, with my friend?
Yeah.
Oh, or my neighbor?
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, if I gave her the right answer, I don't think she needs to hear it twice, but it sounds like I'll just tell her what Jeff said, which is, yeah, unless you can prove that the city was negligent by cleaning the thing out less than once every 3 years and bringing a lawsuit, blah, 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 you got to pay for it yourself. So I don't think she needs to hear. I already told her.
Okay.
That was my understanding. I just wanted to make sure with Jeff, I had that right.
Anything else, Julie?
No, thank you. Just, random things about the incline, emails saying, thank you for protecting us. We live here. And then emails saying, you know, we hate you because we can't go for free anymore. So
Yeah.
just the same old stuff.
Standard fare. Okay.
Yeah.
Who'd like to go next? Counselor Chandler. Yeah, you're muted. Judith, you're muted.
Thank you. Two things. First of all, I just wanted to quickly thank and acknowledge Mayor Pro Tem Nancy Fortune for stepping up to be the match liaison. Thank you for that. I think it's going to be, it's a great fit, and I really am so excited with what the advisory board comes up with. Second thing, I just want to announce that Manitou Springs has qualified to be a Tree City USA. And I want to read you just what that means. We had to meet criteria and apply, and we applied back when Allie McAllister was our arborist. And we're getting signs that can be put out around Manitou Springs. And we had to meet certain criteria, and the Climate Action Work Group met that criteria. And even though the tree planting is now under the purview of PARAB, it happened under our tenure, so I want to let you know what this means. Tree City USA is a national recognition program that began in 1976 and is sponsored by the Arbor Day Foundation in partnership with the U.S. Forest Service and National Association of State Foresters. By meeting 4 fundamental standards, an incorporated municipality of any size can qualify. So we did apply, we qualified, and we'll be able to post those signs. And we met today with the tree planting group, and our goal is to plant 150 trees next spring. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you. Who's next? Councilman Bremner.
Yeah, I met with the people over across from Fields Park, Valle Escondido and Villa Vallecito, I think, and then also Via Chula Vista, that little section in there that's part of my ward. And they had some concerns about, one of the things they brought up was when they wanted to reach the Manitou Springs Police Department, they are not able to go directly to the police department. They have to go through the sheriff, and that causes an inconvenience, especially like one of them is a business owner, and he said that he had a lady in there who was drunk and having a problem, and he needed to get somebody there right away, and he had to call the El Paso County Sheriff, and then the message didn't get relayed apparently, and so he went right down to the police department and said, I need a policeman down at my place right now. And they said, well, go in the outside and you can make a phone call to the El Paso County Sheriff. And it just seems to me like it'd be better to have a direct line for citizens. You know, we're paying a lot for the police department. We should be able to have access to contact the police department and say, hey, I got a problem. So that was one of the issues that came up. The other one was the homeless people that are making camps just on the other side of Fields Park, up there close to where the Highway 24 crosses Manitou Avenue, up in that area. And one of the suggestions one of the citizens made was we make a policy or a statement saying we're going to confiscate shopping carts. And I kind of laughed at that. And I thought, what? You know, and apparently that's what they do in some municipalities. They just say, okay, we're going to confiscate the shopping carts, and they do it. They return them to Safeway or wherever they came from, and then the homeless people don't come back. So I don't know if that's true or not, but that's a suggestion he made. And the other thing they brought up was fire mitigation. They're worried about fires coming from the Garden of the Gods area, and there are also some people apparently camping back in that area, and they're afraid that they're setting fires back in that area. So those are the issues they brought up with me when I met with them on Saturday evening.
Thank you. Councilman Shady, do you have anything?
I have no report, John.
No report. Okay, thank you. Councilor Wolbrook?
Yes, thank you. I just want to say that I just want to thank everybody who sent filled my email with a lot of incline, lots of topics, and I didn't get to respond to all of those. I think some days it was 10 or 20 a day. And I just want to acknowledge that I got those. I couldn't respond to all of them. And then I have another thing that is kind of an odd one, but a neighbor in my ward approached me about the howl, and the howl is okay, but in some neighborhoods it's banging of drums and gongs and other shrieking, and it doesn't end at 8. It kind of goes, it sounds a little like that, but amplified with other things. So I just kind of want to put a shout out there that the person who contacted me has young children. The sun doesn't set till almost 9 o'clock. And there's nothing that we can do about it. It's, you know, the noise ordinance doesn't start till 10. There's not a lot to do, but if you can be considerate and stick to the howl and stick to the 8 p.m., there are lots of neighbors who would appreciate that in keeping with the spirit of how that was initially started. It's an odd one, but it does impact people when it goes beyond the time frame and beyond the howl. Thanks.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I wanted to follow up on Steve's issue about the homeless camp. We all got a email from Denise DeLeo regarding the homeless camp on Crystal Park Boulevard, or below Crystal Park Boulevard. And this is a recurring issue. I don't know where we are with it right now. I know that the police have been involved. I'm sure Kai has been involved. I would just appreciate an update on what is being done in that regard. I think I'm always concerned when fire mitigation is blamed on the homeless, when I see cigarette butts on the ground that were clearly not from the homeless on my boulevard. But anyway, I would like some sort of follow-up, CC me on the email to Denise or whatever it takes, but I would like to be able to respond to that. Secondly, many of you on our break may have seen the email again asking us to reopen City Hall and start to hold our meetings at City Hall based on Governor Polis's guidance. So I put that out there as well. We know I'm an advocate. I'm potentially very much in the minority on that, but others are asking for it. And that's all on council correspondence. I'll have some on future agenda items.
Okay, great. Thank you. And then at last Wednesday's PPACG meeting, I found out that Manitou no longer has an official representative to the Air Quality Tech Committee. I think right at the end of last year, there was a transition made. Francois Robb was stepping down, and Yurik Kirich took over, but he's not official. He attends as a private citizen, not as a representative. So we could use, if you know of someone who'd be willing to serve in that capacity, that would be good. I think they just meet once a month. So we have that. Like most of you, I got a lot of emails and phone calls and stuff about one thing and another, mainly the incline this week. And also I would be an advocate for going back to having meetings at City Hall. I think probably an initial step would be to make it sort of optional. I think some of us could meet down there. Anyone who is not comfortable with meeting there could continue to participate via Zoom. So that would be my thought towards moving to that. I know city staff had looked at ways to do that in the large Memorial Hall room, so we'd be socially distanced. And if we still have a Zoom component of that, that would allow a large number of the public to participate as well. So that's all I've got. Okay. So consideration for future agendas. Does anyone have something they'd like to nominate? Okay, I see. Nancy, I think you had your hand up first.
And Judith can go ahead and go first.
Okay, Judith. Oops, you're muted.
Hang on, my dog started barking again. Somebody walked by. Two things. I know we've talked about this, but I don't know if we want to actually put it out there and have a statement regarding the peaceful protesters related to the Black Lives Matter. I think Mayor Pro Tem Fortune mentioned it, and we didn't really expand on that, but I really think it's important for Manitou Springs to take a stand and make a statement about that. And I don't know that it needs to be on a future agenda, but I think it's really, really important during these times that we let other cities and municipalities know how Manitou Springs feels. Secondly, I would like to see on the agenda the local food assessment. A local food assessment survey was done. I do believe that we hired a consultant to sift through that data. I don't know if she was paid or unpaid. I do remember going to one community engagement meeting about the local food assessment data, and I was very interested, but I had to leave and go to another meeting that evening. I have asked at least 3 or more times very nicely to take a look at that data and via the city, and I have been met with, we are working on it, and I don't know who we is or what you're working on, but I think that we need to take a look at the data. I know I'd like to see it tomorrow in my inbox, and I don't see why that can't happen. But I think we need to take a look at the results and where we are in Manitou, perhaps this summer, certainly before the potential second wave of COVID kicks in this fall. And that's all I've got.
Okay. So, anything else for future agendas that anyone would like to? Nancy?
Yeah, I was going to mention the protests. I know that last time Susan, I believe, had asked that it be on a future agenda as well before we go final with a some sort of letter, and John, the two Johns, I believe, had volunteered to write a template or a straw man of a letter that we might be able to chew on. So I would like to see that on an agenda sooner rather than later. I would like to get council, anytime we talk about a future agenda item, I think we all need to agree that that's something, or at least 4 of us on it.
Yeah. So actually, that's probably we'll take a vote here first on the.
I have a couple of other things that I don't know if you want me to follow through.
Go ahead and finish.
Second thing on a future agenda item is I think we need to look at a potential mill levy and vote this November, and I think we need to start looking at that sooner rather than later. With the decrease in revenue, we need to start, and the potential that Colorado Springs puts on their agenda, retail marijuana. I think we need to start thinking real seriously about our future revenue.
Okay.
And then lastly, and this is for a future agenda, but I won't get to that to the end of my statement. This has been very difficult for me. I've been debating over the past couple of weeks if I should send an email or if I should state this in public. Ultimately decided I should say it in public. So I want to start off by apologizing to staff and my peers on council. I think just like in the protests of the past 3 weeks, when we remain silent, we are concurring with what's occurring. And I have remained relatively silent as comments and assertions were made questioning and undermining the integrity, competence, and dedication of our city administrator and staff. Additionally, I've been silent as I watched the staff be put into unforgiving positions when our council guidance lacked clarity, and then watch staff ultimately be blamed for trying to interpret what we meant. As I've read emails just over the past week, I've seen, or I felt a kick in the gut by some of them. I find them demoralizing in cases, corrosive, demeaning, and accusatory. And I know this is harsh language to be using in a public statement. I don't know if that was intentional, but I know the result was painful. I've watched the staff develop into a team under stable, secure, and highly competent leadership. I've watched as they work long hours under very difficult conditions, and I've seen them exceed my expectations as they've faced one crisis after another. When I came to council, one of my goals was to reestablish and strengthen the sense of team between council, staff, and community, residents, as well as businesses. It took the better part of 2 years to put a functioning team together, and the city suffered during that time period, in my opinion. We now have a staff, but we risk dismantling that team if we, as a council, don't do a better job communicating amongst ourselves. We need to hold each other accountable in a professional manner. None of us are perfect, and I am certainly not perfect. We all make mistakes, and I think we need to take every opportunity to learn from our mistakes. But we're also very smart, capable people who care deeply about this community. We live in a wonderful city, so why do I lose sleep over council meetings? Why are our employees terrified they're going to be fired? Why is staff becoming immobilized for fear because of being criticized for taking initiative? That implies dysfunction at best and a toxic work environment at worst. As city leaders, we have a huge role in contributing to a positive and functional and trusting environment. I really wish we would trust and respect our staff as well as each other. And right now, that trust has eroded across the board as I see it. To be a high-functioning organization we need to reverse this trend that I, as one council member, has identified. I do not have a clear way forward, except to say that agreeing that there is a problem is the first step in solving it. So since I am only one of 7, I'd like to know if the rest of the council perceives an issue. I suspect that a step in solving the problem, as I see it, is additional education on the proper role of council, communication as a means of establishing trust, and perhaps revisiting the concepts in the code of conduct. So I would like to put this sort of a discussion on a future agenda. Thanks.
Thank you. Do you have any other, Councilor Wolf?
Thank you. I agree with Nancy. I would like to make a motion that we put communication among and between ourselves and with respect to council's interactions with staff. I would like to have that be a future agenda item. I do have some suggestions along those lines that might mitigate some of the problems we are experiencing. Specifically going back to Susan Wolberg's previous comments that, you know, if we don't know what's going on, it's our own fault because we should stay in touch with staff more. I would propose rather that anytime any of us have any communication with staff, we would be required to notify each other about that communication. It can be a simple little email. You know, I met with so-and-so regarding such and such on this day, and I suggested that so-and-so consider doing blah, blah, and so-and-so said he would think about it, and then click send all. That way, I don't have to call Denise 3 times a day to see if she's had any communications with anybody that may have changed what I thought she was told to do by council, for example. We don't have to worry or wonder about, you know, who said what. I think if we use email system to update each other anytime we are involved with staff, those just one suggestion. So, but yes, I would very much like agree with Nancy that we should put that on the agenda. I don't know if I have to make individual motions for each of the agenda items. But I would also like to have a future agenda, I agree, regarding the disclosure of data thus far on the food assessment that Judith has referenced. If this is already had some public hearings and already paid a consultant, even if the project isn't done, I want to see that result too, and I want to talk about that at a future agenda. I would also like to put on the future agenda an issue that I discussed with Nan Nichols, where I approached her as the bond issue expert to ask her if now might be a good time to consider a bond issue to look at funding our water and sewer infrastructure needs. I just thought of it just because interest rates are so low right now. She said it was a fabulous idea. So I would suggest we have a meeting about that and be sure to include her where she's not limited to 3 minutes, where she can advise us. And I would also finally like to see the homeless camp issue on the agenda because I am very concerned about the matters that everyone else has already addressed and that was set forth in the email we received about fire. I appreciate Chief Churchill's presentation to us previously that it's best just to leave those people alone. And But on the other hand, I'm really intrigued by Counselor Steve's news about just returning the stolen shopping carts to the supermarket. And if they get so upset you're doing that, they'll go somewhere else. That might be a low budget solution. So I'd like that to be on the agenda too. And I'd also like the mill levy agenda item that I think it was Nancy suggested. I'd love to see all those things on the agenda.
Okay, well, we'll vote on
So
that
I
stuff here.
move to a point,
Well,
to put those things on the agenda. I
we're gonna
guess,
be, okay, we'll be real informal. I want to see if anybody else has any other ideas, then I'll mention these and we'll do a show of hands on each one if that's okay. So do we have any other nominations for agenda items in the future? Okay, don't think so. Okay, so what I'll do is I'll basically try to restate the subject briefly, and then we'll look for a show of hands here. If we have 4 or more, we can go ahead and we'll go ahead and put it on the agenda. So first off, Councillor Chandler's idea of a peaceful protest comment, a statement. I think we talked about that some last week, and I think the intent was to put it on there. But we'll do a show of hands. Who's in favor of putting that on a future agenda? Okay, looks pretty unanimous. Good. Okay. Then the local food assessment subject mentioned by Councilors Chandler and Wolf. Show of hands. Okay. Okay, the mill levy potential increase in property taxes. Who's in favor of talking about it? Okay. Just in case we thought the summer was going to get too simple. Very good. And then the item Mayor Pro Tem Fortune brought up, speaking about council dysfunctionality, about poor communications, perhaps the need for additional education. And then Councilor Wolf also spoke to that as a communication issue. Who would like to see that on a work session?
I don't want to see the education. I don't want education. I want to see communication. Can we talk about communication, or does it have to be all or nothing?
I think it's a fairly broad topic. I think if we're just going to be sitting around the table at a work session and speaking about it, I wouldn't necessarily preclude education. I think it's, with a broad brush, I think that's a place to start. Does that sound reasonable?
Okay, yeah, if it's about communication, I'm yes.
Okay, all right. Then we had the bond issue. Looked like it was focused largely on infrastructure, water and sewer.
Do you want to know how we feel about it?
Yeah, who would be in favor of putting that on a future agenda? Okay. And then the last item mentioned was an update or report on the homeless camp issues.
And the bond issue.
I'm sorry, we just did the bond issue. That was.
No, I thought we did the mill levy vote.
We did that one also.
Oh, we did both?
Yeah, and the one we just did was the bond issue for water and sewer. That was the one one of the things that you had mentioned, Julie.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I thought it was about the mill levy, and I thought those were distinct. Okay.
Well, no, and we did the mill levy separately. Mill levy was the third thing we did. The bond issue was the fifth.
Sorry, I'm getting tired.
I can appreciate that. Yeah. Okay. So then the last item was the homeless camps issue. Do y'all want to hear an update at a work session on that?
Well, I don't want an update. I want to talk about solutions.
Okay. Well, okay. All in favor?
Could I say something about?
Excuse me. Yeah. Okay. Let's Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, I just worry that we're starting to get too in the weeds and something like that to say take away shopping carts. I think we just set our high-level policy direction that whatever it might be, I have no problem with high-level policy direction that perhaps, we want to mitigate homeless camps in the community, but I don't want to get into us determining all the solutions unless what staff does is not working.
We're supposed to wait for staff to do something we don't like and then complain later? That's your preference? I thought we're supposed to
I think we set high-level policy of what our expectation is, but I don't think that we need to be getting immediately into the solutions. I think that's execution of our policy.
Well, that's like saying figure out how to manage the incline and we'll let staff figure out all the details. So I disagree with your definition of setting policy as being so
Okay.
broad as to be almost useless. I would object to that.
Well, that's not what we're, okay, Susan Wilbur.
Well, I mean, we just had a work session and a pretty extensive presentation from the police department that really assessed our homeless situation. And while it might not have covered this specific solution, my understanding was we are aware of it and working on it. And what I'd like to do is see this topic and this instance that Councilor Brimmer brought up addressed in updates from city staff. Those updates come every week and they encompass all of our departments, including the police department and any other departments. And I think we just had a work session on this. So we can certainly take a vote on it here to decide if we want it on an agenda. But I also, if Nancy and Mayor John, you know, we're adding a lot of things here, and I want some clear, I want you to clearly tell us how this is going to work, because I don't think these are all going to show up on next week's work session or agenda, and staff is going to have to tell us where they have time to put them, and we're going to have to be somewhat accepting of what's currently on the agendas and where these things fit. And I don't want anyone to walk away from here thinking, well, I voted on it. I told you to do it on June 16th, and now it's June whatever, and you still haven't done it. I really want us to make sure tonight that we walk away from these great ideas and many necessary, mostly necessary things, but we walk away with some understanding of what Mayor John and Nancy do when they set the agendas and how staff contributes to that. Because I don't want this to be a hurt feelings kind of thing when it's not all on the next two agendas.
Yeah. No, that's a very good point, and we have to be mindful of the amount of work that we put on city staff. I think that's well stated. Julie.
I agree with Susan that it makes sense that we need to have some prioritizing here. We can't possibly address all of this next week, nor would it be reasonable to expect staff to get up to speed with all of this by next week. And for that reason, I'd like to suggest as one of the priorities, and not that this would be the only thing on for next week, but I'd really like to see for next week ASAP for us to be able to issue a group response, indicating that we do not support police brutality. And if we wait and we do that in September, it looks really lame.
Okay.
So I would like that to be one of the priorities.
Okay. Yeah, I would gather the sense from several council people that would be pretty high priority. Denise, your hands up.
If you went that next week, Mayor and Councilor Shada, we need everything by noon tomorrow to get on the agenda. So if you want that next week's agenda, we need everything by noon tomorrow.
Is next week a work session?
It is a work session.
So do
And we have, I can't pull up, there are several things that we have coming that we've already prepared for. I don't know what they are. I'm sorry, my computer, I can't get on it. But I would need everything by noon tomorrow for that to hit the agenda.
It seems like next week we're talking about the trash hauling contracts, if I remember right. Is that?
Yes, and you're getting an update from finance on where we are with sales tax, and they're going to mention the mill levy. They're just going to mention it and what that would entail, and what the time frame is, if we could even do it this year.
Yeah.
So it's just going to be mentioned. I can't remember what else is on the agenda. Oh, maybe that, I can't remember. I'm sorry. I don't want to say it out loud. I can't.
Okay.
So
this one computer is frozen and I can't.
I've got it. There was the single hauler, the ordinance amending the municipal code to extend hours on the marijuana stores.
And we're not sure that that's going to be ready by.
May not go forward. A potential presentation by Peak Analytics regarding the tax revenue, and a potential discussion regarding parking fees structure. So if I could recommend that, I would certainly be willing to do a cover sheet for the protest issue, And if council is amenable, John and John, we might set that they just email us a straw man letter by Friday noon or something. I don't know if it has to go in the packet.
It won't go in the packet then. So
Well,
Exactly.
I'll try to get something by noon tomorrow. It's, okay. Sorry, I had intended to work on it Thursday, Friday, and those days disappeared. Okay. All right then.
Excuse me, John, Mayor John, may I ask
Yeah.
another question before we move to the next
Yeah.
thing?
Go ahead.
May we also make some progress next week with this homeless potential fire danger issue? I worry about us
Yeah.
addressing that after the city's burned down.
Yeah. We're creating a pretty ambitious laundry list, and I think they're good topics. When we can get to them is something of a question. Given the fire danger, I could see escalating that to a pretty high priority.
In that case, is it possible to push the trash contract off? I mean, when is the trash contract up?
the end of July. So we've worked on that, Councilor Wolf, and next week we have to do the, because we have to give 30-day notice, et cetera. So that one we really don't yet move.
Yeah.
The other thing is again, we have to have everything ready by noon tomorrow.
Yeah.
And so that is part of the issue, is when you assign something for next week to be on the agenda, it gives staff 4 hours to prepare for it. So I think maybe Brian could send out a quick email with an update, and then we could look at, I'd have to check with what he needs to do, et cetera, for that.
Okay.
So we could send out an email saying, here's what the workload looks like, and this is how we could get it put on. And then you guys could.
In that case, would there be an objection if we put on the agenda, not for next Tuesday, but the following Tuesday, the homeless and the communication issues? Would that be okay for prioritizing purposes?
I'd be reluctant to commit those things to a specific time right now. I mean, yes, they're important, but there's a lot of important things. We still have a tremendous amount of unfinished business on the incline. And one of my concerns is if we get diffused trying to chase all the problems down at once, we'll end up, not accomplishing anything. If it's all right, what I would propose to council is, okay, certainly the peaceful protest thing, that's pretty high priority. So we'll try to get that knocked out. The other things, if we can kind of maybe check with staff and see where we're at, how much preparation would be required, what city staff's workload is, and we'll just try to work through these methodically. Would that be a reasonable approach?
I can meet with staff tomorrow. We can talk about it, and then I can send an email out to all of you saying, here's what looks like would work. And then you can next week say, no, you don't want that, or you want it changed, or whatever. Does that work? And I've heard your priorities.
If we wait till next week, Denise, then won't you be in that same pickle where you say, okay, I've got 4 hours to get it done?
Yeah, I will, but you can't give Mayor asked, because you can't give feedback back to me, because then you're in the sunshine law. So there's all those things that we deal with. I will try to put together, I've heard your priorities. Let me see if I can make those happen.
Yeah.
And I will email you either tomorrow afternoon or on Thursday.
Yeah, we've got 6 subjects here. I'm sorry, Councilor Wilbur, please.
I'm just wondering if Chief Forsett and Chief Churchill can't just update us on this concern about homeless, and that would come from both of them to an all council email where you wouldn't reply all, because that would violate the sunshine law, but you would at least be updated on what they're doing and what they can or cannot do, and we don't have to wait for a meeting. I think I hear the concern, and it is a priority, but I really think it's something that staff can do. They can inform us of what is possible, what's not possible, what they're doing, and all of that. And I would just prefer that to happen rather than wait for it to be discussed. If that would be something that the rest of council would find agreeable, I'd prefer to deal with that one that way. It takes care of the urgency issue, and that's pretty much the biggest issue is the urgency of not putting that off for a week or two. I just think that that's their job, and they know more about it than I do. In a work session, I'm not sure what I'm going to be able to contribute to the issue of homelessness, fire safety, and police enforcement about it, because it's just not in my wheelhouse to know the details of that.
Okay, right. How's that sound, council? Does that sound okay? Nancy?
Yeah, I completely agree with Susan. Secondly, we're not, right now we don't have we have a fifth Tuesday in June. We don't have a meeting scheduled. I know staff could use the break, but that's an opportunity for additional discussion if we wanted to do that. I know that some on council have expressed that we spend too much time. It's now 9:30 and we still have work to do. So we just have, the mayor sets the agenda, or four people can opt to put it on. But I would, I think we have to have some trust and faith in the mayor to set the agenda. And I would say that you've heard what we want on it, Denise. But the only priority you heard for next week, I believe, that at least 4 council members agreed to, is the protest letter.
Protest. Yeah, that's my understanding too, and that's consistent with my notes. Yeah, so I mean, I think we're demonstrating a lot of ambition here, and in probably 15 minutes, we've come up with 3 evenings worth of work. And certainly things like the mill levy and the bond issue are very thorny subjects. They're going to, I think, require quite a bit of staff time to get to a point where we can, have some really good discussion on that. But certainly that could evolve, and it would. My expectation would be that intelligent consideration of that would take place over a number of sessions, that we would let the idea sort of evolve and gather details. If it's all right, I will take. We've got 6 subjects. The last one, the homeless camp, so we may be able to satisfy with just an update and get it from the police and fire chiefs. The others will work into our agendas as time permits and as staff availability permits as well. If that's agreeable, that'll be our course of action.
I'd like to make a motion.
Okay, all right, Julie, go ahead. What ahead?
Thank you. I move that by next Tuesday, we be provided through email or through the packet with any and all data, information, documentation, preliminary reports, or anything else regarding the food assessment. We don't have to spend 2 seconds discussing it at the meeting, but I want to see the information that's out there. It troubles me that we still don't have it. I just want to see it. It troubles me that it's been requested, and we keep hearing no. You can't have it yet, or it's not done yet. I want to see what is done so far, and I want that provided by Tuesday. I'm not asking anyone to lift a finger in terms of preparing new memos or new anything. I just want to see what you got. That's my motion.
Is there a second?
Judith
Second.
is muted.
I'll second that.
Judith, okay, Judith, second, we have motion, second, any discussion? Councilor Wilbur?
You're on mute, Susan.
You're muted.
As Jeff says, I swore I was never going to do that again. But
Okay, yeah.
I don't know. I feel really uncomfortable about this. I don't know what the schedule is, what the workload is for the person handling this, and I feel like this is directing staff. And I mean, I don't know who is the staff person who does this.
Karen Birchhold, and I will touch base with her tomorrow and see where it's at and what we're doing. So.
Okay, thank you.
I'd like to call the question. I'd like to have a vote.
Okay, so.
To clarify, you wanted it next week's agenda?
No, I don't want anything on the agenda. The agenda is full. I want to be provided with the documentation as it now exists. I don't want anyone to add up numbers, do more research, or write any memos. I just want to see what we got. because
Just-
it's already begun. The process has begun. We've hired a consultant. There's been some work done. I want to see what's been done thus far. It's just a matter of having it in the packet so we can review it. I don't think we should spend 1 second talking about it. I just want an opportunity to read this. That would be my motion.
Okay.
You want it in the
Motion.
packet or as an email? I think that we need to be clear.
Either way is fine, as long as it's in my computer by next Tuesday night. I don't care if I get it as a text, as an email, or a packet.
Okay, and since it.
Whatever's easier for staff, you know,
Okay.
you know, as long as I can read it, I don't care what I have to click.
Okay. Councilman Shada?
Can I make a suggestion that it just be included in the packet so that it just becomes part of the public record? So if there are any members of the public who are interested in this topic, they can see it in the packet. I just would rather it not just come by email to us and we're the only ones who have visibility. I just think we ought to just have that transparency.
I agree.
I agree. That makes sense.
Okay, well, then all in favor of taking whatever we've got for the food assessment and putting in the packet for next week, say aye.
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 Any nay?
Nay.
Okay. All right, so it passes 4-3.
No, I didn't see that. I saw 4-3 against it, didn't I?
Let's do
No,
that
we-
again.
Okay, okay, I believe it was Councilman Shada, Wolf, Bremer, and Chandler. Is that correct?
Yes.
And Steve, that was, you voted for it, I believe? Yeah, okay, so yeah, it was, so we had Shada, Bremner, Wolf, and Chandler in favor.
I must have a delay on my, I saw Mr. Shada's hand up when, during the nays, so sorry.
Okay. Okay, next item, City Administrator Report. Roy?
Yeah, the Parking Logic equipment came in yesterday, and we're going to be training and testing it on Thursday at Public Works, and then start to assemble and put it around the city. That's all I have.
Good, thank you. Denise?
I don't have anything. Thanks.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right, thank you. Well, that concludes the City Administrator's Report. From the published agenda, that would look like we've come to the end of the meeting, but we didn't solve everything, of course, in our executive session. I think the intent when we left it was to come back. Do I have a motion to go back into executive session at this time?
Mayor, can I make a comment, please,
Yeah.
before we consider that?
Yeah.
I feel, I want to let council and the community know that I feel uncomfortable leaving the public meeting and going into an executive session until I have had a chance to respond to a comment by Mayor Pro Tem regarding the dysfunction of the council. And I'd like to say that now, if I may.
Okay, go for it.
So I really don't want to give our citizens the feeling that we are a dysfunctional council. I totally disagree with that. I completely admire the people that I serve with, their dedication, hard work, their passion. We have a great leader in our mayor. That said, that doesn't mean that sometimes I need to take my council hat off and behave as a resident, taxpayer, homeowner, stakeholder. And I, like the Black Lives Matter movement, I just don't feel like I gave up my civil rights as a resident and a taxpayer to be on council. So I think sometimes it's hard to know when to cross that line or not. And I just want to know that we're all in a learning curve, me too, and I'm teachable, and I appreciate any constructive feedback. That said, I think we have a phenomenal staff. I'm really stymied as to why we have the issue of our city administrator's performance on our agenda, because I voted to give her a raise because she's phenomenal. That does not mean that everyone's perfect and there's not teachable moments for staff as well, where maybe something could have been done differently, or something that happened affects the council. Those are teachable moments, but that doesn't mean in any way that we want to get rid of staff or we don't appreciate staff and don't want to work with staff. We had a recent incident with the police chief, you know, an unfortunate photograph. There were some issues with that. Just because there were teachable moments there, that doesn't mean that I don't have 100% confidence that we hired a phenomenal chief of police. And I believe that he is of high moral character and just, again, just teachable moments. So I just don't want you residents to think that we are a dysfunctional mess here. We have gone through a pandemic, and at the same time, we passed the COG CUP. We've dealt with the incline. We've dealt with match. And I don't know, yesterday, I think I got 20 emails about the incline, open the incline, open the incline. Most of them were not from Manitou residents. And then I got emails from people who live in Manitou. Please, please be careful. Please take care of our parking. I live on Roxton. Don't, you know, make good decisions for us. So please know that everybody on council is trying to work in the residents' best interests. And I, for one, you know, we're all teachable and we have some issues like any family, but I feel like it's an honor to serve on city council. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Walbrook.
I just want to have a brief comment. I know that when I got on council, I went through 2 days of training in Denver. And I don't know if that's something that happened for the new people who came on council, but it was really phenomenal for me. It was 2 days of role playing. Nancy did it with me. It was really, really helpful. And it really dealt with some of the things that you mentioned, Judith, about the citizen hat and the council hat. And I can tell you that if that's not possible for you to do, I hope that it would be, and that if we could maybe even look into that and just see if that's available, it was helpful. The other thing is Jeff sits in these meetings for a reason, and I'm sure he'll be really glad when my term is over, but this is a place where Jeff really helps. And I want to encourage everybody to use him as a resource. He's helped me a lot. I don't always like his answer, but he helps me a lot with that issue of what is the standard? Is it a council standard? I mean, what standard are you held to on council? And he really helps me with that. And I just want to remind everybody that he's here and he's a resource for us in these meetings. But again, the training that I went through was phenomenal, and it wasn't boring and it wasn't lecture. It was total role playing in difficult situations for 8 hours, 2 days in a row. And I wouldn't say that it gave me all the answers, because everybody knows that's not true. But it was phenomenally helpful for me. And I'd really like to make sure that we're always making that available when people come on council, because if you don't have something like that, it's hard enough, but it might be harder without it.
All right, thank you. Okay. That said, I guess the question is, do we want to go back into an executive session and continue to hammer away at the incline tonight? In my mind, there's two questions. You know, what's our next step, and the question of law enforcement. So, do we have a motion, or Julie?
I'd like to suggest that perhaps we go back into executive session solely for purposes of discussing the portion of the incline topic that was on our agenda, solely to discuss the more immediate concerns and not the long-term concerns, specifically so that we can give the police department very clear guidance on our expectations for any upcoming protests that may occur before we meet again, and that all other of the many, many other issues of the incline be dealt with in executive session in the future whenever Mayor John thinks it could reasonably fit into our agenda without messing everything else up. Is that, how do other people feel about that? I don't mean that as a motion per se. I mean, it could be a motion, but I'd like some discussion. Can we limit it just to, any police involvement for the next week, and then discuss the rest of the incline issues next Tuesday or next year or whenever? But I'd like to figure out, just to give real clear for the police department, our expectations for Saturday in particular.
Okay, would someone like to make a motion?
Can I just say that I'm really okay with that. It's just that I got cut off when I was saying something in executive session, and I would just like to at least finish the comment and then
Okay.
move forward. And it may also segue in anyway, so otherwise, yes, I second that.
Yeah, because we could talk about it till 2 in the morning, you know.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's not do that.
So if we could have just a simple motion then to go into executive session. I guess that's what that was, just
Go
simple
back
enough.
You know,
into
you actually
executive
don't-
session.
Jeff has
You
something.
don't need, sorry. You just recess the executive session. You've already made the motion to move into it. You can just head back into the executive session without a new motion.
Okay.
We can just limit the discussion as you deem fit.
Okay, all right. What I would propose then is we take about a 5-minute break while we let city staff change over so we can go into executive session and they can get the attendees to remove themselves. For the general audience out there, we did have, we obviously spent a fair amount of time in executive session earlier this evening. We still have some issues we'd like to address for the near term. So we will be going back into executive session. This part, of course, is not open to the public. So, so for the attendees, we bid you a good night and please log off. So let's anticipate starting the executive session in about 5 minutes, about 9:52. Okay?
Mayor John,
Yes, certainly.
what is the public, do we just come back into the regular meeting and do we make an announcement to the public that no decisions were made or we have to come back out into a public meeting, right?
Yeah, we would exit the executive session into a public session and then adjourn from the public session.
Okay. So
I don't know that we're required to, I mean, we don't make any decisions really in the executive session. We don't take a vote or take formal action.
So there'll be no report on this then. I mean, nothing will come out of this to the public is what I'm hearing. I'm just confirming that.
Yeah, that's what I would anticipate. I suppose if council decided to give direction, maybe it'd be appropriate for Mr. Parker to weigh in on this.
Yeah, you're actually heading to the right answer there. If directions provided to staff to do something, staff could then, take that action and move forward. But anything that happens in executive session is generally confidential and there's no further discussion of it. But
Okay.
a lot of times, though, the information that city council says, staff would like you to go ahead and do this, go ahead and do that, and then staff
Yeah.
would move ahead with that direction.
Okay.
Could I recommend, John, that based on at least one council person's concurrence for you to set the agenda item for next week, that we let it be publicly known that we're going to discuss it again next week? I don't want to keep picking this down.
No. No, I know.
It deserves at least that much.
No, I think that this is a major topic and we need to pursue this with vigor and resolve. And I don't want to kick it down the road. I think we need to beat it up. I see a fair amount of fatigue on people's faces. So I think we've got a limited amount of intellectual capacity left tonight, but I think we would tackle it again next week. If that sounds reasonable. We can discuss that in executive session.
Okay.
Okay, if that sounds agreeable. Okay, so 4 or 5 minutes, we'll see you again.